plans to do naughty things.
I didn't think JSK actually got shot. I think his head just did that.
So I originally got the idea to make this video of playing some GTA Online with some friends. It really got me thinking back to when I used to be playing my PS3, and it got me thinking about the Black Ops series, as it was something that I used to dump hours into. I hold these games in such a high regard because they did so well for both game sales, narrative, and gameplay. More importantly, I think they mark a cornerstone for what used to be the old-gen games, and I think everything sort of past Black Ops 2 really is just a different type of game entirely. So I did something that was rather stupid, and I went and got myself a copy of Black Ops 1. I already owned Black Ops 2, and I played it through probably a few months ago.
Laugh it up, chucklebutt.
And it really made me appreciate just how much detail went into crafting Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2.
Any superlative words of inspiration for our humble troops?
Do not pray for easy lives, my friends. Pray to be stronger men.
A quick side note here is that I'm not touching on any of the zombies game mode, simply because I absolutely love it to bits, but I don't think that it deserves to be bundled in specifically just with this video. I think that I'm either going to make another video on them entirely, or I'm going to be leaving them out of this.
Your turn! Come on! Step 8, Reznov! Freedom! For you, Mason! Not for me!
So Black Ops 1 was launched in 2010, which makes me feel really old, as a continuation of the story made in World at War. It launched after Modern Warfare 2, which is held in a really high regard, despite being made by a different team. I do still think a small portion of its success was to do with it being launched after Modern Warfare 2. And although not being set in the same time frame, having a similar gameplay style, I think really helped. With Black Ops, I thought that the tonality is a much more serious and darker tone than what the Modern Warfare series had. Now, I'm not saying the Modern Warfare series didn't have some dark tones at all, but I think that in terms of the time frames that it deals with, it does still go into depths of the type of things that happened during those eras, and I think that it did a good job of portraying those, despite not being an accurate or realistic representation of the events. Art direction complements the gameplay style and the themes well. It really is a great representation. The graphics, I think with the flashing lights, although yes, they are, I think at times epilepsy-inducing, I do think they sort of get the idea of the intensity of the pain that Mason's gone through before he's being interrogated, and then being interrogated himself, the stress that he's going through. It allows you to put yourself in that position. Even simple things like how the intro is made. I would struggle making that. I have struggled making the small intro bit that I did for this. It's insanely hard to make that, and I think that was with today's technology. I can only know what the art directive would have been like when you got told to try and make that. It would have been insane. However, I think they did it well. I think that it's a clear expansion on what they started in World at War, where it had its 2D, 3D element meshes. I think that Black Ops 1 does that to the next level and makes it feel like a step up, which it is, and I'm glad that they kept it as well. Like, they changed for something much more simple, much less strenuous, and something easier to do. I don't think that this game would have had any of the charm that it has today. Black Ops 2, to me, was a game that I played the ever-living shit out of from launch day till the last DLC that they released. I ate up literally anything that came out on that game, and I was an absolute goblin for it. Despite its shortcomings in some of the game's design and losing some character by taking the entire idea of this Cold War and Vietnam era game and pushing it right into the future, I still think it kept a hold of most of that original charm, and having those maps in between that take you back to the past to play as Mason yet again, I really think that helped bring the narrative back into one whole, and I think it was a nice way of building on the missions pacing from Black Ops 1. Having those forwards and backwards moments are a clear point of inspiration that they took from Black Ops 1, and bringing those back into Black Ops 2 really helped shape the narrative and show you just how the storylines link together to create a really nice meshed story. I think that other inspirations such as the Blackbird mission and the Strike Force missions that had you controlling defending points, although I wouldn't say they were the best type of missions that were in that game, I still think that they had a lot to offer and that they really created something that was unique to that game that wasn't seen before. Pair the two side by side, it is clear as day where that inspiration came from. I think that the jet section was also another clear example of where they took inspiration from Black Ops 1 with the helicopter mission. I think that's another clear example where they've taken inspiration and expanded on it, and its pacing in the story and its position where it's much closer towards the end is a clear example of this. Having a nice visual change between the different locations in the story with the different HUD elements, I think also help bring that together, and overall it is just a brilliant game. It still keeps some of that original style, the art, such as back in the older sections, the references back to the numbers again that will appear time to time, which really helps again bring it back to that original story, while still having in the more later missions a more modernized HUD that works with the believability and the idea of being this sort of futuristic, sort of cyber-enhanced soldier really works. It's put into the future far enough where you can believe it, and it doesn't feel like it's gonna be, oh, it's past my lifetime. It is technology that has been added in with thought, and similar to how Battlefield 4 took very close modernized inspiration and guesses, I think that this game, although reaching further than what Battlefield 4 did, it still made some educated guesses into what we're gonna take off in the time. It explained itself and the technology was understandable and where its reaches and its origins were.
And you've heard me say this before, I hope you're plagued with dissatisfaction as long as you live.
Overall, my closing thoughts are that I still absolutely love Black Ops 1 and 2, and I'm glad that I went back and played both of them because they really have shown me just how much effort went into making them, and that it honestly gave me a new level of respect for the developers that I never thought I was ever going to give them, even if those staff and those members of staff no longer work at the company. I think it's a good part to actually explain my true meaning behind the title of this video. Now, I do think that Black Ops 3 was a good game, but I think that it solely depended on its multiplayer and zombies to even have a name worth to that, because its story is so far apart and so off the rails in terms of what it's trying to give you of information, both in-game and in like lore dumps. I just don't think that it works at all, and it has barely any link to its previous games, and at that point it really isn't worth having the title of Black Ops on it when it's so far away from having anything to do with those games. And I think after that, Black Ops 4, whatever the story notes they added to that one was, because it was all multiplayer, again, I don't think they were that impactful. And Cold War, which I think is going to be the main one I think people are going to complain about in the comments, is that although it gave an explanation and more detail into the Cold War area of the game that wasn't quite as well explained, I don't think that it really fits that title being called a Black Ops game, because yes, it uses the same characters, yes, it's set in the same universe. I don't think that it goes into enough explanation or has enough craft or tension to it that the original Black Ops 1 and 2 games had, and its story just doesn't match pacing. Again, I think that's a good thing, and a big thing that actually was part of those original 2 games was the pacing of them, and the attention to how it jumps between timings while still having cohesion is a massive part of that, and I think that's just lost in the newer games, which is a shame, because I was really hoping that it wasn't going to be the case, but I was unfortunately let down, which is a shame, because I do think they are good games with potential, but I don't think that they match what the original games had that made them so special for both the time and for a piece of narrative storytelling. It's shown me that they have the competency to create and test new things while at the same time they managed to backpedal on that and create something that's not quite as engaging with the new Call of Duties. I think that the narrative points that these games have in comparison to the old games, although yes, they are completely finished story-wise, I think that the narratives that the newer games are trying to build aren't as engaging or as interesting, and they're much more focused on trying to get people to buy the next game rather than to just pick it up because they want to see what's in that story. It's much more the case of buying to see an ending rather than playing it for the sake of enjoyment and playing it to see what someone's crafted for you to see. Because at the end of the day, it is just a physical medium of storytelling, and if you're only buying a movie ticket to see the ending of a movie, why should you sit through the other 18 minutes of it? And that's the way that I see it. And it's a shame, but I really do appreciate the effort that went into making these games a historic amount, and I'm glad. I'm glad that they exist, because Lord knows what would have been there.